Well, hey friends, this is Jennifer, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, the podcast for women who want to find freedom in both their life and in their business. I own a multi-7-figure-a-year coaching business. I'm also a certified life coach. So I have the honor of helping thousands of women every single month make money in the online space and help them to get unstuck from whatever is holding them back, all without sacrificing their faith or their family. In this show, you're going to get the very best life and business advice, always with a healthy dose of Jesus. So buckle in, my friend. I'm so excited that you are here. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com and use the code GEN30 to get $30 off your order of American-made meat for the month of May.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. This is podcast episode number 358, the one where I decided to go back on the YouTubes. And so if you don't follow me on YouTube and you like watching me fiddle with my hair, drink my coffee, etc., feel free to flip over from your podcast app over to YouTube, where the video is now going to be available thanks to Easton Allwood at Bootcamp for the summer. So we're going to talk today about how not every idea you have is for right now. And I want to talk to those of you who are wired, especially like me. So you're super creative. Listen, super creative people, we don't lack ideas. And number one, we always have ideas, right? And number two, if you are really wired for entrepreneurship, if you are really wired for business, you will never be at a lack for ideas either. You will never be sitting there going, I wonder what I could do today in business. You won't. You'll have so many ideas that what usually happens is you freeze. You usually have so many ideas that you don't know where to start. And so then you find yourself just getting stuck and doing none of them. Am I right? Let me know though in the comments below that I'm right. And so it's often for us creatives and business owners, it's not a lack of ideas, but it's often like, when do I execute? What do I do with the ideas that I'm getting? When do I execute those ideas? And I know for Pete, I get my best ideas in business. I get my best thinking done when I switch environments. And that's when all of my creative juices are going. I know I recently did a podcast. It was episode number 349. If you Google Jennifer Allwood podcast, 349, the title is New Environments Give Fresh Inspiration. I think I just about said perspiration. Anyhow, so look, if you go listen to that, it talks about how when we change our environment, it almost like opens up creativity in a new way. And so I think so often when we switch our environments, like if I go to a massage, for some reason I have all my best downloads from God, it seems like, when I'm at a massage or when I'm driving or when I'm in the shower. But also if I take a vacation, some of you know that you get your best ideas like when you're out on a walk. And maybe when you go to a business conference or a mastermind, like you get all of these ideas, right? And the majority of them they're never going to come from your office. I've said many, many times that I love what Allie Brown told me one time. She said, Jennifer, no good ideas come from your desk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay. So it's not that you don't have a lot of ideas, more than likely. It's just that you're not sure when you should execute them. And that's what I want to talk about today. The truth is you can't execute every idea as you have it. So you have to figure out how do you pick and choose, and then how do you delegate them, and how do you determine what are the best ideas for now and which one needs to be tabled for later.
Friends, I know it's no secret that I am not the cook in the house. I am not the one that makes any of the food. I'm just not good at it. But recently, you might have seen on our Instagram stories, Jason was grilling steak and chicken and burgers all at once. And he usually does this every Sunday or Monday night for us. This way we have food that we can eat on all week. We're less tempted to go out. We're less tempted to eat things that are bad for us. It just helps us at the beginning of the week really set up for the week. So if you have not been to goodranchers.com yet, you need to go. This is trustworthy, 100% American-made meat, ready for cooking for a week in advance, for your, grilling party, for your summer parties, whatever it is that you're about to have. And they have generously offered GEN30 as the code that you can use to get $30 off of any box of meat. So $30 off any box with my code GEN30. Go to goodranchers.com. That is Good Ranchers, American meat delivered right to your door.
All right, so we just had our mastermind event in Nashville, and I know that the ladies that were there all came back, or at least I hope they did, with lots and lots of ideas, big long to-do lists. And even me and my team, even we get inspired when we're around another group or, in a group of women. And so it's good for all of us. The collaborative genius in the room is just phenomenal. And so I'm sure all the ladies came back with tons and tons of ideas. And what I always like to tell people when they go to a conference or when they go to a mastermind or when they go to a local meetup, I'd always tell them that reentry is hard. I heard that years ago. I don't know who from, but reentry is hard, meaning you're on fire when you're in the room, right? Everything seems kind of crystal clear when you're in a group of people. You figure out a lot of things that you want to execute. You think of all the things that you need to do as soon as you get home. And then you get home and you're like, oh, wait a second, what was I thinking? No, wait a minute, where did I start first? And on top of that, you're coming home from being on fire, but you're having to reacclimate to possibly being a wife, possibly being a mother, and then putting right back on your business hat, and a lot of times getting right back to the day-to-day. And so what happens is we get inspired, we get ideas from other people, we figure out all these things that we want to do, and then we come home and we don't often do them because reentry is hard and we get lost back in the shuffle. So I want to help you figure out how you could do some of the things, some of the ideas that you just gained when you were, watching that workshop online. So the ideas you just got from going to that local meetup in your community. And so there are some things that I know are ideas for now and some things that are ideas for later. And discernment is knowing the difference. So I can remember, we have Business Assist Agency, which is my virtual assistant agency that we've had now for 18 months. But we had the idea for Business Assist at least 2 years prior to actually launching it. But we knew it was at the time. I didn't have the capacity. No one on our team had the capacity. We had other things that we were having to do. The world was in, a dumpster fire type of situation with 2020, 2021, with the pandemic, all the things. So the timing was not good. Discernment is knowing when is good for right now and when is good for later. I can also tell you that on a personal level, a lot of times God will give me ideas for business or give me thoughts about our life or show me what is going to come in a prophetic way. But it's often 4 or 5 years before they actually happen. I've literally gone back on some of my prayer journals and I see how I knew that we were going to adopt a child. I knew that it was coming, but it was 5 years before we got Ari. I knew that we were going to have financial breakthrough in a way that we've never had before. God told me exactly what the financial breakthrough, the amount would be, but it was 5 years before it happened. I knew that we were going to be moving. We were looking for a house a long time ago before we moved into this one, but it was 4 years later. It was like God shut every door. And so those were all ideas in advance. And so some ideas and some words from the Lord, they are for now. Others are to be shown for just the time being. So how do you know the difference? So the truth is that's kind of have to be, based on your discernment, what you and the Lord discuss, when you and your team have the capacity for, when you feel a hunch towards. Don't ever discount that hunch. That is often the Holy Spirit telling you what needs to happen quickly, because sometimes you're given an idea and the Lord wants you to execute on it very fast. I know we have something that's going to be being offered for all of you who are in my coaching groups and those of you who are not, in about the next 90 days. We got an idea planted from someone several months ago and knew that this is something we're jumping on immediately. And so here's what I want you to know, though. When you are in a room, you have all these people that you're talking to, you have all these thoughts. How do you figure out, what to do first? What do you do with all the ideas that you feel like you're actually supposed to execute on? So here's my suggestions for you. If you go to a live meetup, if you go to a mastermind, if you sit in on a workshop, if you go to an online summit, hopefully you are taking a ton of notes. And so, listen, sometimes what I find people do, especially if it's in the virtual space, is they will listen with one ear, but they're totally multitasking. And the truth is you can multitask, but you can't multi-think. So multitasking can be this. I can fold the laundry as I'm listening to a training, but I can't be listening to a training and writing an email for my list. Those two things don't work because they both require thought. So you can multitask, but you can't multithink. So I could be tasking, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, while I'm listening to a podcast. But I can't be listening to a podcast, listening to an online summit, and also doing a social media post for the day, because both require brain capacity. So anyhow, some of you just need to like turn off everything else for the love. You've paid to be in that room. You've paid for that online summit. You've got time invested. So turn everything off. Get a notebook. Actually, I suggest just dedicated to that coach, that group, that summit, whatever. So have a notebook, and I want you to get a pen, and I want you to take a ton of notes, okay? And so then here's what I always do if I have traveled to the event. So most of you know that I belong to a mastermind. It's called the Wellspring. And so we have 2 or 3 live meetups a year. And so I have a notebook just for the Wellspring. I take it with me. We always fly to our location. So when I get there, I take all the notes and do all the things. As I'm hearing things, as I'm, they're coming to my mind, as people are planting a seed, I'm making physical notes. I'm also not doing it in my phone. I don't know. For me, there's something about just a physical piece of paper and pen that makes everything different. So I'm writing it down. Inevitably, then, I will have a plane ride back to Kansas City. So one that I learned years and years ago is that if there's too much time between when I am at that live event or when I take that online summit and when I go back to my notes, I lose some of the vantage points. I'll come back to my notes, weeks later, and I'll be like, okay, what was I meaning about that? Or why did I write that down? And so I almost have to do it immediately. So it's like the summit isn't over. The mastermind isn't over. The conference isn't over. And so I've got through my notes. Okay. So I will often on the plane take out my notebook and I'll take out a highlighter. And here's what I'll do. I'll highlight everything that I know I need to either share with my team or do immediately. And, an email I need to send, a thought that I have that I think we need to execute on, a podcast episode immediately, a to-do, type of item. So I'll highlight those. And hopefully it's not, the entire notebook, by the way, because you just can't do all of the things. So I'll highlight what I want to do first, what I think is something that is for now. And then inevitably what I do is I get home and I have to go through and pick out, okay, which of these things am I going to run by the team right now and which am I going to leave for later? The truth is, most of the people who work for you, if you have a team, they're not wired like you. And so if you come in with 9 million ideas for them after you get home from something or after you watch something, it will often overwhelm them. So my suggestion to you is this: figure out the top 3 things you want to run by them. Figure out the top 3 things that you want to execute on. Figure out just the top 3, because the top 3 is like a manageable meal. And sometimes what happens is I'll go and I'll come back and I just have like verbal diarrhea. I just do like a brain dump. And it's like, as soon as I get it out of my mind, I feel so much better. But then my team is like feeling, crazy. I was sharing with the mastermind ladies, who always get the behind the scenes and the real deal, by the way. But I was sharing with them that last year I invested quite a chunk of money in having somebody come in and really talk to me and my team about my leadership style, about how, working for Team Allwood is and goes, how we could do things better, etc. So I invested a lot of money with the gentleman at McMile, who does this for a living. It's an amazing program that he has. And he comes in and he interviews me about how I think I lead. And then he interviews everybody that's on my team separately about how I lead. Then he interviews my husband and a couple of friends that I gave him the names and numbers for. And then he puts all of this information together and he comes back to me and he gives me kind of the lowdown. And so it's all like anonymous. Like, I don't know what's coming from McKinsey versus I don't know what's coming from Nell versus I don't know what's coming from Tracy or my husband. So it's not like, any of them have to edit their answers. So Lila comes to me and he says, Jennifer, you've got an amazing thing going. And I was like, thank you. And maybe he says this to everybody. I don't know. But he's like, your team loves you. You love your team. You are well respected. And I'm like, thank you. And then there's a but. Inevitably the but. He's like, but, because you often come in, Jennifer, as a tornado, and your team needs you to be a hurricane. And I'm like, oh, what? And he's like, well, you're from Iowa, And he said, tell me about a tornado. And I'm like, well, he says, why do tornadoes take so many people out? Why are tornadoes so deadly? And I said, it's because they come in, often without warning or in the middle of the night, and people are they're often, surprised and they're stuck somewhere. And that's why tornadoes are so harmful. And he said, now tell me about a hurricane, because you own a home in Florida, so you know about hurricanes. He said, tell me about a hurricane. I knew exactly then what he was getting at. Because in a hurricane, you were notified weeks in advance by the meteorologist, right? The news starts reporting weeks in advance that there's a hurricane that could hit Florida. For weeks in advance, we're able to prepare and we're able to get things ready. It's not happening overnight and surprising us. It's allowing us time to digest what's about to happen, mull it over, figure out what we need to do, etc. And so Lyle said, what's happening, Jennifer, is you're coming in like a tornado, but your team needs you to be a hurricane. They need you to give them just a little more warning. They need just a little more time, a little more capacity, because they're not all wired like me. And some of you need to hear that also, because the people around you are not wired like you. You may be coming home from an event and you may be talking to your spouse, if you don't have a team, about the 15 things you want to change, and then their head's spinning, right? And so if you can figure out a way just to narrow it down, figure out just the top 3 things for now. It will be helpful for you in terms of wrapping your head around what needs to happen first. It'll be helpful for the people around you, that they'll be able to pace with you. Because so many times the people in our world, they can't pace with us. I always say that I'm a fast talker because I'm a fast thinker. And so, where Jason sometimes, he just gets verbal whiplash, I think, from me. And some of you are doing the same thing to the people around you. So when you leave an event, when you go to an online conference, you attend a workshop, whatever, think of the top 3 things that you want to do. Instead of all of the things, and the top 3 things that you believe, that you have a hunch are for right now, and the things that maybe will be for later. So 1 idea well executed is better than 10 ideas just left undone. And so remember that, okay? And if you are somebody who would like to attend an online workshop, if you are in need of some ideas for your business, don't forget that I do have my Level Up Bootcamp that starts on May 17th. Hopefully some of you have seen this online. We've been running ads to a lot of you. Notice our ad game is strong right now. Send me a DM if you've gotten an ad. And so go sign up at jenniferallwood.com/levelup. I'm going to be talking about how you can level up your business from now to the end of the year. I'm going to be giving you some ideas, some things that you need to execute on hopefully immediately, some things you might want to table for later, but you are going to get some ideas. So again, it's at jenniferallwood.com/levelup. So thanks for being here, friends. If this is the first time that you watched me on YouTube in a hot minute, will you just leave me a comment? Let me know that you're glad to see me back. Only see nice things though, okay? So I appreciate you so much. Until next week, be blessed. Bye-bye.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. I'm so honored that you come back for every episode and that you share the Jennifer Allwood Show with your friends and family. Every time I see you guys post about it on Instagram or Facebook or something, it just makes me do a little happy. So thank you. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast if you never want to miss an episode. So you can go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or any of the other podcasting places and subscribe each week so that every week you get the new episode when it releases. So just know that I love bringing you relevant content. I love bringing you great guests. And one of the ways you can help us here at Team Allwood is by leaving the podcast a review. So if you have just a second to do that, would you go over and leave a review for the Jennifer Allwood Show? Thank you again. You're amazing. I'm honored to be here. Until next week. Bye-bye.